And how will a second Trump presidency impact us here in Canada?
That could raise costs for Americans on everything coming across either border. We're talking about cars, electronics, oil, wood, food, avocados, maple syrup.
Imagine waking up to the news that the delicate balance of one of the world's largest trading relationships is hanging by a thread. This isn't just political drama, it's a ripple that could become a wave, shaking economies on both sides of the border. Let's explore how this plays out from the lifeblood of trade between Canada and the US to the cultural and economic exchanges that define their shared border. Trade between Canada and the United States isn't just an item on a government spreadsheet, it's the backbone of both economies. Canada sends about 75% of its exports south of the border, but if high tariffs come into play, the impact could be immediate and severe. Think about it. Orders for Canadian products could dry up overnight. Auto parts, lumber, oil, and gas. These aren't just numbers. They're industries that employ millions of Canadians. Tariffs could make these products more expensive for American companies, prompting them to cut ties and look elsewhere. And it won't just stop at canceled contracts. Canadian manufacturers relying on US materials could find themselves paying more, leading to price hikes for goods across the board. This wouldn't just hurt businesses, it would ripple down to consumers who'd face higher prices for everyday essentials. That's the kind of chain reaction that can send shockwaves through the economy, leading to layoffs, closures, and even a potential recession. But here's the twist. While Canadian industries would bear the brunt of the proposed tariffs, US companies wouldn't escape unscathed. The interdependence of the North American supply chain is the result of decades of economic collaboration, solidified by agreements like NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, in 1994. Under NAFTA, industries across Canada, the United States, and Mexico became deeply integrated. Canadian components became essential to the functioning of American production lines, from the automotive industry to advanced manufacturing. Consider the auto sector as a prime example. Cars built in North America often cross borders multiple times before completion. A transmission might be manufactured in Windsor, Ontario, shipped to Detroit for assembly, and then back to Canada for final touches. This cross-border flow keeps costs down and efficiencies high. Now imagine tariffs disrupting that rhythm. Not only would Canadian suppliers face financial strain, but US car makers would also see their costs spike, making their vehicles less competitive globally. This isn't just a hypothetical. A small scenario unfolded during Trump's first administration when tariffs were imposed on Canadian steel and aluminum in 2018. These tariffs initially aimed to protect American industries, but ended up driving up costs for US manufacturers reliant on Canadian materials. For example, Harley-Davidson announced it would shift some production overseas to avoid retaliatory tariffs from the European Union, a move tied to the initial US tariffs. It showed us how a strategy meant to bolster American industries can backfire, causing ripple effects that hurt businesses on both sides of the border. When costs rise, US companies lose their competitive edge, impacting profits, jobs, and even consumers, who ultimately bear the burden through higher prices. The interdependence of these economies makes such policies a double-edged sword. So while tariffs might seem like a win for the US on paper, the reality is far more complex. And trade isn't the only thing at risk. Border security is another critical piece of this puzzle. The Canada-US border, often called the longest undefended border in the world, symbolizes trust and cooperation, but that could change. If tariffs escalate tensions, expect border operations to tighten. Canada might be pressured to adopt stricter measures to align with US policies, particularly around immigration or drug trafficking. This could mean longer wait times for goods and people crossing the border, disrupting the seamless flow that both countries have enjoyed for decades. And it's not just about logistics. There's a human element here too. Stricter border policies could make it harder for families, friends, and workers to move between two countries. For border towns that thrive on cross-border activity, this could be devastating. Worse yet, heightened tensions could create an atmosphere of mistrust. Imagine a scenario where every truck, every shipment, and every traveler faces increased scrutiny. Not only would this slow down trade, but it would also add layers of cost and complexity for businesses relying on just-in-time supply chains. Now let's talk about tourism. an often overlooked but vital part of both economies. Canadians love heading south for warmer weather, while Americans flock north to enjoy Canada's natural beauty. This exchange isn't just cultural, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But imagine what happens when tariffs, border tensions, and economic uncertainty cast a shadow over this relationship. A stronger US dollar, a likely outcome if the Canadian economy takes a hit, could discourage Americans from traveling to Canada, where their money doesn't stretch as far. On the flip side, Canadians facing economic uncertainty might cut back on discretionary spending, including trips to the US. Even beyond the currency exchange, the vibe changes. If border crossings become more cumbersome, fewer people will be willing to endure the hassle for a weekend getaway. For border cities that rely on tourist dollars, this could be a crushing blow. And it's not just individual travelers. Think about the ripple effect on airlines, hotels, restaurants, and local attractions. Declining tourism could lead to layoffs in these sectors, creating a domino effect that spreads far and wide. All of this points to a larger issue. The Canada-US relationship is shifting. For decades, these two countries have enjoyed a partnership built on mutual benefit and shared goals. But with protectionist policies and escalating tensions, that relationship is being tested. Canada might be forced to rethink its reliance on the US market. Diversifying trade partnerships, investing in domestic industries, and strengthening ties with other countries could become top priorities. But these aren't overnight solutions. Building new relationships takes time, and in the short term, Canada would still feel the pain of losing its most significant trading partner. At the same time, the US would face its own set of challenges. Alienating a neighbor and long-standing ally like Canada could have profound geopolitical consequences that stretch far beyond trade. Canada and the US share one of the longest undefended borders in the world, a testament to decades of mutual trust and cooperation. Disrupting this relationship could make a collaboration on critical global issues, such as climate change, defense, and international trade, far more challenging. Take climate change, for example. Both nations have a vested interest in reducing emissions and protecting shared resources like the Great Lakes. These cooperative efforts require mutual goodwill and trust, which could erode if economic aggression takes center stage. Similarly, Canada has been a vital part in defense initiatives, particularly as a member of NATO and NORAD. These alliances are built on a foundation of respect and partnership. If Canada feels undermined economically, its commitment to certain US-led defense initiatives could waver, impacting collective security in the region. A historical example of strained relations can be seen in the softwood lumber disputes that have periodically flared up between the two countries. These trade disagreements not only hurt economic ties, but also led to prolonged tensions that complicated negotiations in unrelated areas. Alienating Canada now risks exacerbating such disputes, making future collaboration increasingly difficult. In an interconnected world, the US can ill afford to turn a reliable ally into a reluctant partner. So, where does this leave us? Will the tariffs go into effect, or will cooler heads prevail? Could this be the wake-up call Canada needs to reduce its economic dependence on the US, or will the two countries find a way to rebuild trust? And most importantly, what does this mean for you as a consumer, a traveler, or a citizen of a global economy? What happens next will not only shape the future of Canada-US relations, but also set the tone for how nations navigate an increasingly uncertain world.